you again, gentlemen, for coming and listening to my presentation tonight. I come to you as a humble scholar, if nothing else. I'm no forensic anthropologist. A real forensic anthropologist would be wearing closed-toed shoes right now. I'm in heels. But I would like to tell you that I made sure I visited a lot of credible sources to get this information, because I want to provide you with facts, not half-truths or flat-out lies, and I also don't want to sabotage my future in this career by learning the wrong information. So, let's get on with it. What is forensic anthropology? Well, forensic anthropologists are the people who study bones and specifically skeletal remains in criminal investigations with the police and people like that. Now, that forensic anthropology is actually a subfield of physical anthropology. And one of the first things they identify when they have a victim is sex. Biologically, is the victim a man or a woman? And it's important to note the distinction between sex and gender here, since sex is something that is biological and factual. Gender is something that is internal. You can identify as something other than what you were born with. However, since we are dealing with science here, we need to speak about the biological sex of a person before we can determine anything else about them. So if you take a look at the first picture here, you can see an example of two pelvises. The top is the male pelvis, the bottom is the female pelvis. The male pelvis is very narrow at the top, looking at it from above. Very narrow, while the woman's, beneath it, is much wider. Why do you guys think that is? I know, nobody, it's a weird, interesting question, right? Well, it has to be, the woman's has to be wider because it needs to allocate room for childbirth, as well as the fetus that's going to grow in there for 9 months. Men don't need to accommodate for that, so their skeletons have no need to be wide, especially not their pelvises. This is also evident at another angle of the pelvis when you're looking at it straight on instead of from above like the picture here. You can see the subpubic angle down here on males is very, very pointy because it has no need to be wide like the females. It doesn't need to birth the child through it, unlike, of course, the women. Now, the next important factor is age, determining how old the victim is. Now, one of the easiest ways to do that is through a skull. So I'll go ahead and pass that around for everybody to take a look. See if you notice any differences between that and this while I present today. One of the first things I notice is that I'm sure that jaw has no teeth within the mandible. Like, what a scary looking diagram. That's how you can tell if somebody is 12 years or younger, by the tooth eruption. Do they have their baby teeth still, or are all of their adult teeth in there, which happens around 12? Now, if you get a victim that's older than 12, you still need to narrow down what age they are. And a good way to do that is by tooth formation. Seeing how many canines somebody has, and knowing that a grown adult has 32 teeth in their whole mouth, and knowing the specifications of those, which are listed here if you'd like to take a look at it after the presentation. Height is an interesting one, because if you have just one bone of the human body, you can get a pretty accurate measurement of how tall somebody is. And by fairly accurate, I mean within 5 centimeters of their height, give or take. Now, there are different formulas for males and women, so you're going to want to determine that before you start thinking about determining their height. You can see there's different constants here in the equations. Since the femur is the largest bone in the human body, it's also a pretty important one. The next one I'll briefly touch on is race, which is becoming more ambiguous the more mixed babies we have, naturally, because you could tell some big differences here in the African eye sockets from the European ones. Europeans being more of a rounded square shape, Africans being much larger, and Asians being much more circular than any of these other two. But like I said, it is becoming kind of an arbitrary thing to try to identify a skeleton. Now, I leave you with a challenge today. 3 things. What is the most surprising fact you learned today? Think on it. Now, how has the development of technology changed our ability to identify human skeletons? Has it helped? Has it hurt? And what are the big 4 characteristics that I covered in these slides that need to be determined about a victim? See if you're paying attention. And here is a list of many, many sources, and they are cited in MLA format. If you'd like to take a look, please let me know. Thank you, guys.